This means
We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Wednesday. Now, the last couple of podcasts I've done on my own. I did a YouTube live yesterday. That was fucked up. I mean, it turned out all right, but normally I would get comments and questions, and for whatever reason, YouTube didn't send me any questions and comments, even though I know there were some. And prior to that, I did a Substack that was a little better. No, I didn't do a Substack. I did an email show. So now I've got somebody with me. I did two shows, had to pull all the weight. And as you well know, I'm a lazy bastard. So who do I call? And equivalent lazy bastard, but the two of us together only have to pull half the load. And we've got Jace coming to us from Texas. Welcome, Jace. You're a sight for sore eyes after a couple of nights on my own.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. If there's anything with the weight, man, I'm one of the guys for it because I got plenty of it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Jace is from Texas, and you've got some interesting things going on down there. We'll talk about that first, and then some of the ridiculous shit going on nationally. We had a meeting Donald Trump had yesterday. We had his rally. I haven't heard much about the rally as yet, but we should mention my birthday was on April 16th, and no big deal. I did turn 65, but
Happy birthday.
I don't really get involved in birthdays too much. But today, the day you're listening to it, is Jace's birthday. He's 53. He's still a young man, so these are important to him.
Yeah, as long as I don't lose my hair, Mike, I'll be okay. As long as I
There
keep
you go.
one, and no gray hair and stuff. So thanks, Mike. And I was like, it's a pleasure to spend my birthday with you.
Well, I appreciate you're willing to do that. And just a tip, if you're worried about the hair, wear a fucking hat.
Oh, yeah, I haven't worried about the hair in, excuse me, many years.
It's funny. I never wore hats before, and I don't care about thinning hair or anything like that. I really don't give a shit. Um, but I started wearing the hat because a doctor told me, you got a bald spot up there and you could get cancer. So I started wearing the hat, and I just started wearing the hat. And now when I take the hat off, it feels like my whole head is unbalanced. It doesn't look right to me. In fact, my granddaughter, if I come in and I have my hat off, she'll look at me and say, Grandpa, put your hat on. She wants to cover up as much of this shit as possible too. And I take my directions from my granddaughter, whose birthday was the 26th. So we're all
Birthday to her
in
too.
that same realm. Um,
Speaking
so
of
tell
uh,
us, go
speak,
ahead.
speaking of hair, I saw something on, I think it was The Hill or something. There is nothing worse than a comb over, which the glorious Orange Messiah does.
Yeah.
But also when you have these guys that are like in their 70s and 80s, and they have that really bad wig that looks like a 20-year-old, healthy 20-year-old
Uh,
would. When you don't have that much hair, I mean, just that's why another reason why Michael Jordan's the greatest because he shaved this shit and he made it respectable for everybody. And then
right.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, same thing, shaved head. So I'm grateful to those two. And I want to say, kind of before we get talking on, Texas and everything, this is kind of a Texas related. I know a lot of people here, know the Blue Warrior that Greg Popovich is. And
Yeah.
he had an episode a couple weeks ago. He was at a restaurant, and I don't know if everybody knows, but he had a stroke about a year ago. And they say it was a mild stroke. Well, that's kind of being like kind of pregnant. A stroke's a fucking stroke.
Yeah.
So he may be done. And I love him because all the Trumplefucks that used to love him when he was winning championships hate him because he calls out Donald Trump. And that's one of the people that Donald Trump has never talked back to. Because Greg Papa
Oh, yeah.
clean him up on that, whatever. But Popovich is a humanitarian. He's a great coach. He doesn't have as many championships as Phil Jackson, but I think he's the greatest coach of all time. And Stefan Castle just won Rookie of the Year. So the Spurs have had back-to-back Rookie of the Years, like David Robinson was at one time, Tim Duncan. So I'm hoping the Spurs organization to do a lot for the community, to do a lot for blue causes, so to speak. And a lot of that's because of Pop. So I want to give a shout out to the Spurs organization. Unlike the Cowboys, I'm not embarrassed to be one, But, we'll see where that goes. But, go Spurs go, and hope Pop gets better. I don't know. Maybe somehow he'll see this, but, thanks, Pop, for everything, and I hope you get better. And thanks for fighting the cause that me and Mike, a lot of causes that me and Mike believe in, a lot of the listeners from Rational Boomer.
I don't talk about sports on here very much, although I like sports and I used to be a sports reporter and all that stuff. But how you feeling about the Minnesota Timberwolves 3-1 up on LA? You got to like that. Who likes LA?
I don't like the Lakers. I think LeBron James just gets too much, and Minnesota's due. God, I mean, it's you guys are due from football because it's like, I'm starting to kind of feel like y'all because the Cowboys look good in the year and they blow it in the playoffs. So we're kind of like you guys. Maybe it's the Red McCombs curse, but I'm going
for the
Timberwolves. Yeah. I mean, you have a lot of great, if a city's due, I mean, it's you guys, man. When's the last championship? What did y'all, is it hockey or?
No, never won it in hockey. We won the World Series in 87 and 91, and those were the last times.
Wow. Yeah, y'all do. Y'all are due. I mean, Texas has had plenty. LA, California's had plenty. Yeah, it's time to start getting. And I know the NBA is probably like not liking that because speaking of like the Dallas Mavericks, about 5 hours up the road, they used to have Mark Cuban used to be their owner. And I used to hate that fucker when he would talk stuff about the Spurs because there hasn't been a rivalry. There hasn't been a rivalry in recent years. But did you hear what they did? He sold the controlling interest to some billionaire.
Yeah.
And what she wants to do is she wants to pretty much move them to Las Vegas. So they traded away their best player. It would be kind of like us trading away a Tim Duncan. Like they weren't going to give him the max contract. And the fans were like booing the GM. But the GM only did what the owner told him to do. They want to destroy the love of the team. And I like Mark Cuban up until the fact that he said if he ran for president, he'd run as a Republican. Well, I haven't voted for a Republican in a lot of years, and Mark Cuban's pretty good, but that kind of lost me there. But it's just another billionaire, screwing the man, so to speak. They don't have. And there's a lot of people in that arena that probably voted for Trump because it's Dallas. Dallas is pretty blue, but, it's just another example of a billionaire. It's like, Elon Musk does all this shit, and I get that thrown in my face. Well, you guys liberals used to love Elon Musk. And I told somebody, I go, well, don't you fucking think his actions warrant not having that? Well, I don't think it's right to fucking, burn Teslas. I agree. Just like it's not right to storm the Capitol when you don't get your way. Well, that's different.
Exactly.
I mean,
or deporting 2-year-olds. I don't think that's right either.
There's no, and I've gotten to the point in my 53 years. I just have gotten to the point that I'm just not arguing with MAGA anymore because it's not worth I'll talk to anybody like on the Rational Boomer, who wants to listen to me, but I'm not going to try to, convert people like, they say you got to preach the lost. I had an uncle that reached out to me, my dad's brother, who I used to love until he became MAGA. And he used to talk about how racist my dad was, and guess what? And
so was
he reached out to me because I don't really talk to them anymore, and I don't know what's happening, and I'm very apprehensive about reaching out. But it's like part of me is just curious to do it, but I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt to talk about politics. I mean, I talked to a lady today that works with me. She's from Canada. I told her how great it was that the liberals won. Oh my God. I go, that just tells you how bad Donald Trump is, that the liberals were on the verge of getting their ass kicked. And Donald Trump, well, I don't like him for that. I go, well, I don't like him that he's crashing the economy. I don't like him that he's, helping turn people against each other. I mean, Rick Wilson said it so well. Everything Trump touches dies. And we're seeing that now. He gets a great economy from Joe Biden, who MAGA now all of a sudden tells me, well, it was inflated. I was like, funny, it wasn't inflated when Trump thought it was good, when he inherited it. But anything, Joe Biden and the media would have just gone ape shit if Biden would have fell asleep at the funeral. But did they give Trump any shit at all? No. The media is one of the biggest problems. They have normalized Trump. And honestly, I don't really have it in me anymore to really, reach out. if I'm not talking to somebody, it's their actions, it's not mine. I try not to have any enemies, but I think the worst thing you can do is when you just don't give a fuck anymore. And that's kind of where I was at with my dad. I didn't hate him. I didn't love him. I just didn't care anymore. And that's the
Right.
worst because you just don't have the energy to fuck with it anymore.
Well, that's what people used to say to me. I never got along with my dad in my adult years. And people say, you can't let him die and hate him. I said, I don't hate him. I
Yeah.
said, he's inconsequential to me. I'm a
Yep.
dad. I'm a grandpa. I don't need a daddy anymore. I know what he's done and what he thinks and what he will do if I get close to him again. And I just prefer to keep some sanity and some peace in my life and not wade into the turmoil and the chaos that he will create. So I don't have any qualms about him passing away before we make amends because that was never going to happen. It's like dealing with Trumplafox. You were talking about Mark Cuban maybe running for president. I think we should be done with electing celebrities as president. There's only one billionaire in this country that I think could be a good president, could be a great president. That is J.B. Pritzker from Illinois, the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. He's a legitimate billionaire, but he's doing some great things uh, in Illinois. And he's been talking a lot like he's maybe thinking about running, but he's calling out Donald Trump. He says we need to be bold, we need to be strong, we need to be fighting. And he's the one guy that's saying it. And I agree wholeheartedly. If we don't get in the fucking fight, we're going to get walked over. And he's saying the right things as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you heard what happened with Amazon, right? How they were going to put that tariff on the bill, and
Yeah.
it made the White House really mad. But why should the White House and Trump be that upset about it if the customers don't pay for the tariffs? I
Right.
mean, and I haven't heard anything. I've heard that Amazon said they weren't going to do it, but but they'll just inflate the price. I've already seen it. I'm guilty. I'm one of those shoppers that shops on Temu or and there was this little gadget they had because the Chinese have great technology, and being a tech guy, a lot of it, and you get a lot of it cheap, you
Yeah.
know. And there's this little gadget that my mom's car. It's an older car, so it doesn't have those sensors where it shows you where the tire is. The tire is low.
Yeah.
Well, they have this new gadget that I saw last week. Swear to God, it was less than $20, and you just put them on the thing, and it reads. It's a little reader that reads on your dashboard. So if you have a low tire, when the thing comes on, it'll show you which tire it was. That fucker was $50 today. It went
Yeah.
from below 20 to 50 to $60. Plus, you're not getting that free shipping, and you're also seeing on there that it's not available to ship to your country. So it's not like you said, it's not the high prices we're gonna have to worry about. It's not having shit. And America loves to consume shit. When they
Yeah.
can't get their Nintendos or the PS5s or whatever, all that shit's made there. Now you got Subaru going over there, and then Ford was like saying, "Oh, we're going to build stuff American made, so you don't have to worry about the tariffs." What do? They increased it too, and it's like you said. It's like they don't trust him. He's like a child. One minute he's in a good mood, the next minute he's in a bad mood. Today
Yeah.
he was making fun of that guy from Canada that lost. I mean, he was mocking him for losing, like he caused him to lose. How fucking insane is that? I mean, if
Well,
I caused somebody to fucking lose, I'd be on a trip to Bermuda and hiding my ass away.
what's funny about that whole thing in Canada? We've talked to some people from Canada, and prior to Donald Trump taking office, the conservatives looked like they were putting a pretty good pounding on the Democrats. They were up by as much as 12 points. But since Donald Trump became president and started talking about the 51st state bullshit and the tariffs and everything, that opened the eyes of a lot of independents and maybe some even some conservatives going, God, that's a shit show. We don't need that here. And then the liberals come back and win with Mark Carney. Um, so Donald Trump gets the win there for the liberals. I don't know that he even understands that. He was jokingly saying, "Yeah, you should be voting for me because you should be the 51st state." People don't want to hear that in Canada. People who live in their own countries have their own pride for their own countries. They don't need somebody to come along and say, "You ain't shit, so you better join us," which is basically what Donald Trump is saying. And he alienated a lot of people, which seems to be Donald Trump's main talent is alienating people, like every other ally we have in the world.
Well, I wonder what's going to happen down here because I was watching local news and they were talking about which is one of the biggest city in Texas that's going to be affected by this, and it's San Antonio, because
Is it?
evidently we had trade agreements with we had trade agreements with Canada on certain stuff, and the fucked up thing about it is that, like you said, it's like the shit that he's doing tariffs on and he's going back on is the shit he signed. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like that he didn't
He
want it
cut the
called
deal.
he didn't want it called NAFTA. He wanted it called something he wanted. So they gave in to him and did that. And what's happening down here is that we're running out of water down here. And, we're worried about, when a woman can get an abortion. We're worried about, transgender. We're worried about banning marijuana and hemp products because Dan Patrick's got a burr up his ass.
Yeah.
But we're not worried about water. Well, it must be pretty bad because we just made some kind of deal with Mexico to down here to down along the border, Mission, a city close to where I grew up in McAllen. It's right on the border with Nosa. They had some kind of treaty that goes back to the 1800s. But it must be pretty desperate if we're, during you don't hear about you don't hear Trump attacking Mexico so much anymore. You hear him talking about Canada or the Panama Canal, but you don't talk about Mexico anymore because I think that Mexican president pretty much set his ass straight. And Canada, they're probably going to be doing that next with, that guy getting. All I heard is about from this how bad Trudeau was, and I pretty much looked at her. I go, well, how fucking bad does that make Trump if they're going to that party they just kicked out? But see, they don't get that. They just look at the other side. And I told her, and I was like, well, I used to be like you. I used to think everybody with a D next to their name was a devil. Look what they did to Hillary Clinton. I mean, they did fucking Pizzagate. They did all this shit. Her biggest thing is she wanted to give people health care back in the 90s. God fucking forbid that the insurance companies held back. And then I hear about how bad Canada is and socialized medicine. And she goes, well, my aunt has to wait all this time. And I go, the biggest contributor to bankruptcies in America, it's medical debt. Yeah. Hell, I got an image from I got an imaging from my doctor sent me for some imaging. I paid $300 out of pocket, and I was thinking that was it. Well, guess what? I got another bill today for another $300 for the same image because I guess my insurance company didn't pay it, so I got to pay $600 for a $500 $500 thing. So make it make sense to me. So yeah, socialized medicine isn't the greatest thing, but we don't. And I brought that up to her again. I was like, well, women aren't bleeding out in their cars in Canada, are they? And she just looked at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I go, they're telling women what they can do with their bodies. So you're okay with a man, but she's real independent and does all this stuff. But when, I go, well, have a man tell you what to do for her body. That's fine. It's just, if it's a Democrat offering it, they don't want it. They just vote against their, and I just don't get it. And I kind of used to see it that way, but if I can save somebody and say I do have to vote for, say I do down the road have to vote for a Republican that I agree with, that's the difference between us. We will vote for the person. We don't vote for the party. And we also don't worship our candidates. Because she was throwing shit at me at Biden. I go, Biden's not fucking there anymore. Biden did a good job. He did a great job. Motherfucker's gone. And people were clamoring to see him over there, not Trump.
Yeah, we don't care about Joe Biden anymore. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying it's like business, okay? If you're running a business and you have a machine operator who's very important and very good at what he does, you respect him, you pay him, you do all that stuff. But when he retires, I'm not worried about him anymore. He's on his own. He's a private citizen like Joe Biden is. He's not a factor in politics anymore. And I'm not suggesting anything bad about that. It's just that you got to fucking move on from time to time. And Donald Trump should have been out of politics as of January 20th, 2021.
Yep.
But the Republicans couldn't help it. There was, yesterday was his 100 days in office. And this is usually a big milestone for presidents, their first 100 days of each of their terms. And did you know, looking at all the parameters, looking at 5 bills, that's all that's been passed in the House, uh, tanking economy, all the things going on. Donald Trump has the absolute worst first 100 days of any president in history, which is funny because just a few weeks ago, Donald Trump says, people are telling me this is the greatest start to any presidency. No, Donnie, you're lying. Nobody's saying that. And if they are saying that, they're doing drugs because even the people that support you have to see what's going on.
So what's their answer? Fire the pollster. Yeah, that'll work. Stephen Miller was on Fox telling we need to fire that pollster. And now he's wanting to go after pollsters and make it a criminal offense. I mean, God, can you imagine Joe Biden or Obama doing that? I mean, people would lose their fucking shit, and rightfully so. I mean, it's like we used to worry about George W. Bush saying strategery, I
Yeah.
mean, and he wasn't the greatest, and he wasn't the smartest, but he wasn't a fucking, he wasn't a wannabe dictator. He did some shit I didn't like, yeah. I mean, they all do. Presidents up till this point, a lot of them do things we like, a lot of them do things we don't like. Joe Biden did a lot more great stuff that I can remember in recent years.
Yeah.
But it's like every day, it's like, and he's doing this on purpose. He's doing it on purpose where he like, he throws shit over here, he throws shit over here, and the media just runs after it. And and it's and when people and like creators get on there and they're like, well, I'm surprised this is happening. Have you not been fucking paying attention? Nothing what that fucker does surprises me. Nothing. He's trying to just make everything about him. I mean, he was upset that the funeral was about the Pope and not him. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, he bitched
Yeah.
about what was said. It's not about you, Donald. It wasn't about Joe Biden there. But a lot of more people wanted to see Joe Biden and shake his hand than they did Trump. Did you see that when Zelensky got cheered and Trump just
Yeah.
got nothing there? I mean, it was it
Nothing.
was
Crickets.
great. It was
There
great
was
because
an, the,
he's standing up to two dictators right there.
right. Well, there was an interview last night Donald Trump had with uh, one of the networks and a reporter, a guy named Terry something. I'm not sure who it was. I've seen him before. I just don't know much about him.
Terry Moran?
And he's, huh?
Was it Terry Moran from ABC?
It could be. It could be. But he's sitting down with Donald Trump, and they're having these interactions, and Donald Trump is saying the same shit he says all the time, over and over. 99% of it lies. But then they started talking about Kilmar Abrega Garcia and how he's a terrorist, that he's a gang member. And Donald Trump has the audacity to say to this reporter, didn't you see the picture of his hands? It said MS-13 across it. And the reporter goes, yeah, well, that was Photoshopped. That's been proven to be Photoshopped. He goes, what? Photoshopped? Donald Trump fought this guy for about 4 minutes that was true. He said, you're saying that's Photoshopped? He said, this is what he said. He was trying to embarrass this Terry guy. And he goes, look, Terry, you won the lottery here. You get to talk to the president. He said, I didn't even know who the hell you were. So he's trying to embarrass this reporter. The reporter goes, look, it was Photoshopped. Let's move on to something different. And Donald Trump wouldn't move off of it. And this is a perfect example of what I've said about Donald Trump. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if Donald Trump is just lying or the people around him are lying to him and he believes everything. I don't know what it is, but it's pretty clear that the picture he showed was Photoshopped, because when you've seen other pictures of his hand, it doesn't have that on there. It was just too clear. It was like they did it on a fucking laptop computer. But he wouldn't get off of it. He did not like the idea that this guy was questioning him. He would not back down, and he insisted it was true. He goes, I don't know why you even do this. Why don't you say, yeah, I saw it? No, because that would be a lie, Donnie. That would be a fucking lie. But that's how Donnie wants to do things. He doesn't want Amazon to tell people what he's actually doing. He doesn't want media people to call him out for the things he's actually doing. He's fine with doing the shit. He just doesn't want anybody talking about it and pointing fingers at him and exposing him for his ridiculous stupidity. It was just so childish. I had to laugh. TJ sent it to me, and I go, "Holy fuck!" I can't even imagine somebody would do this on network television, but that's what we get with Donald fucking Trump.
Well, it's also the thing about when he had the Eagles there at the White House, he had to take a shot at like the Kansas City Chiefs, and of course Taylor Swift didn't bow down to him. I mean, he talks and he got involved with the draft, NFL draft, about Deion's son not getting drafted. I mean, it's like I remember when the economy was in the stock market was like this back in '08, and you had Pelosi, you had Biden, or not Biden, well, Biden, yeah, I guess he's vice president. You had, Obama, and you had George Bush working on getting something passed. The fucking house was on fire.
Yeah.
But not Trump. I mean, it's like they just, I mean, I don't know if, the house burning down is going to be enough. I know you seem optimistic that they're going to wake up, but I mean, maybe it's because I live in Texas, but I mean, it's like I tell people, they talk about the criminals and wanting to put them away. And it's like, well, Trump's a criminal. He's a convicted felon. And they look at me like deer in the headlights. It's like the poll numbers. It's like they were talking about the poll numbers. His poll numbers going out. They're blaming his people are still saying it's fake news.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, Mike. I don't know what's going to wake them up. I mean, like I said, maybe it's Texas and they drink more Kool-Aid down here.
No, I don't think the MAGA people, the base MAGA, and the polling is kind of showing it. He's got 35% of the people still support him on some things, and that's the base. I don't think they will ever wake up. I think the people that are going to be waking up are the Republican politicians that see the end is near if they continue with Donald Trump. I think the oligarchs and the big business owners, they're seeing that they're taking an ass whooping because Donald Trump is stupid. When you talk to all these people, the Republicans or the business owners, they say, I didn't think he'd really do it. Well, he said he'd do it. And he's dumb enough to do it. So they were just so focused on getting their tax cut that they were willing to take a risk and think they could hold him back. But he's got nothing to hold him back now because he's got nothing more he needs. He doesn't need votes. He can grift as much money as he wants. You can't give him a carrot anymore. He's just running roughshod. And you fuckers that thought you could control him, surprise, motherfuckers, you can't.
Yeah, it's just the thing about it is I got, somebody told me today, and I don't, and the thing about it is I don't solicit this shit. They know where I stand on shit because during the first term I was pretty vocal about it, and I haven't changed. So it's just like, somebody told me today that, the Chinese own CNN. I'm like, dude, I don't know if that's true or not because I don't know where they get their fucking news at. And it's like, then she said something about immigrants, and I go, that's fucking Tucker Carlson talking to you. And she told me, well, you need to watch this news or whatever. And I go, I do. I watch the Midas Touch and the Rational Boomer. And it's just fucking crickets because it's like Trump will tell them something and people will just eat that shit up. They won't do their own research. Now RFK was down here and measles is still breaking out down here. It's up to like 500-600 cases. So what does RFK Jr. do? He goes, well, we need to worry more about diabetes and diabetes and something else. It's just like Trump. It's like, well, we don't want to worry about measles, so we're going to fucking ignore it. So let's worry about diabetes, which should be done. But there's a lot of money put into diabetes. But they're talking about doing away with the COVID shot, or the COVID vaccine. They're doing away down here with the measles test when it's breaking out. Only a Republican in a state where it is running rampant would decide not to give people free vaccines. Yeah. It's just, my goddamn. I mean, I don't know how in the hell I ever considered myself a Republican or fucking ever voted for one, because it's like the inmates are running the asylum. I mean, it's just these people that do this, they're not dumb people, I didn't think. Well, I guess they fucking are, because I'm just
they are dumb.
And I get why people cut other people out. I mean, I can't do that right now because I work with them.
Right. Well, you were talking about them saying that CNN was somehow connected to China, which isn't true. Be honest with you, CNN is owned by a Trump humper, so fuck you.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, but Carolyn Levitt, when she was asked about the Amazon thing and the listing of the tariffs and how that was a hostile political move, which is absolutely ridiculous, it's just simply being transparent and telling the truth. But she made a statement while she was in front of the press, and she said, "It's well known that Amazon is an arm of a Chinese company." And she held up some fucking picture she printed out on a printer, one of those Canon printers. And she had to walk that back later because that's just fucking ridiculous. And then she said something else. I haven't seen the video, so I'm not absolutely certain she said this, but I can see her saying that. And if anybody can verify it for me, please do. But she is quoted as saying that when it comes to arresting judges, they would be happy to arrest a Supreme Court justice if necessary. Yeah. All I got to say is please do that. Please do that tomorrow. Go arrest one of the Supreme Court justices. I don't even care which one. John Robert, you want a Kagan, you want to arrest one of those fuckers? Let's see what happens when you do that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I brought up that point about how they arrested that judge. Well, they were breaking the law. I go, well, the guy in the fucking Oval Office broke the law too. And it's like, well, how did he do that? I go, classified documents. Well, Biden this, Biden that. I go, Biden's not president no more. You know what I mean? And it's this like, it's just, yeah, that would be interesting to see them do a Supreme Court. What I'm curious to see is that, I know I've heard these rumors that the Supreme Court's getting kind of testy. Well, it's their own fault for creating this monster, giving diplomatic immunity. So what they, when they do finally go too far and they do try to, they said he's already resigned to knowing when the Democrats win again that he's going to get impeached again. Yeah. But, by then we have to wait till 2026 or close to 2027. By then the Republicans may have had enough if they keep the Senate, which I think Tim Walz was saying that he's optimistic about the Senate. So we'll see where that goes. I think the House.
But I will say this, we got a shoe-in Georgia with John Ossoff. I think there's no question he wins. And you know why?
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Marjorie Taylor Greene's going to run against him. Oh, please do that, because nobody likes you outside your little fucking redneck district in Georgia. People in Atlanta certainly aren't going to fucking vote for you. People in Savannah are not going to vote for you. So I hope that's the competition for John Ossoff. He's a good senator in the first place. He's very articulate. He's very smart. He could probably beat any other Republican. But if that's the best you can bring to the table, let's do it.
MAGA doesn't even like Marjorie Taylor Greene. So
no.
They kicked her out of the Freedom Caucus or whatever that little group was. So it'll be interesting to see, especially and down here in Texas, Beto said he may run for Senate again, and if it's against Cornyn or Dan, I just can't see Ken Paxton being the candidate. It's got to be Cornyn. There's no way. Well, then again, I thought, Kamala would win. So what do I know? You know, and I was about to say it to you. Well, there's a given we're going to win the House in 2026. But fuck, we said that before, didn't we?
Yeah. The problem with Beto is this. Some people said he should run for president or he should run for Senate. I like Beto. I think he would have been a good senator. I think he would have been a good governor. But he's lost 2 races, and that's a stigma that he may not be able to get over, especially in Texas. Nobody wants to vote for a loser. And I'm not saying Beto's a loser, but he was a loser in those races. And that's going to do nothing but work against him. People like winners. People like people that succeed. And as much as Beto is very good at what he does, the perception is, I don't know if I'd run Beto again. I'd lay low if I was Beto. I'd do something different.
I don't know who would run. I don't know who's going to run against Cornyn or Paxton or whatever. I don't know, because I think by now somebody should be, at least talking, but I don't see any Democrats doing that. So I think the Democrats in Florida are pretty, you have that Republican or that Democrat slowly switching parties to an independent. Texas is pretty bad too. I mean, Texas. The Democrats got their ass kicked here. I mean, I was, and I think that with Ted Cruz winning, I think that just excuse me, put the may have put the Democrats down for a while. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Beto may be the only choice we got to run. I mean, it's like Stacey Abrams in Georgia. I mean, she's popular, she's great, but she's lost too. Hasn't she lost a couple? Didn't she run for governor a couple
Yeah,
times?
she ran for governor a couple times. She lost, and that's disappointing to me because I think she is one of the finest politicians for the Democratic Party has currently. She is smart. She is able. She put together those help with those Senate campaigns to get those two blue guys, Ossoff and
Warnock.
Warnock. She was part and parcel responsible for getting them elected. I think she's brilliant. I think she's articulate. And I think it's a shame that she's not in elected office now. It's such a waste.
I remember when Warnock was running against Herschel Walker. I am a diehard Dallas Cowboy fan. Some people call me an idiot, but I donated against Herschel Walker. I mean, and even though Herschel Walker's, and I hate to bring up this trade, but he's responsible for one of the greatest trades the Cowboys ever pulled off on the Vikings. But I couldn't.
The worst trade the Vikings ever pulled off. We got fucked in that deal, and I hate Herschel Walker.
Yeah. So like I said, but I voted. I donated to that. But speaking of donations and everything, Trump's now trying to go after Act Blue for. How ironic that he's trying to go after a group that supposedly takes foreign donations. I mean, isn't that the Republicans' last name?
Oh yeah.
I guess George Soros will have to. He don't live in America, does he? He'll have to move back over here because he can donate. Because Soros is the only billionaire the Democrats got. Maybe that's why we keep losing. I don't know.
I mean, the paranoia within Donald Trump's administration and the paranoia within MAGA in general, they want to prosecute anybody who speaks badly of them. My wife says, what if they came after you and sued you? And I said, I'm small potatoes compared to anybody. They'd have to go through a lot of motherfuckers before they got to me. But I will tell you this, if Donald Trump wanted to sue me, I would smile like a motherfucker because all my properties are in my kids' names. I don't have a ton of money. I have enough to be comfortable. And my platform would blow the fuck up. And then I would make some money. So go ahead, Dottie. Go ahead. Sue me. I fucking dare you.
Yeah, and you can add me and some of the other guys to the payroll, Mike, and we'd fight along with you. And we'd all do it.
Absolutely.
We could all go to get your passport ready. We can all go to where's that place that Carrie Nome had those pictures at? It's like
El Salvador. Down
there. It's like that's where we're all going to end up because he's talking about like his political enemies. He talks about people. They're doing that thing too to where they want to prosecute people. I don't know if it's here in Texas or it's national where they want to, go against people that are anti-Christian. And it's like, well, the only anti-Christian is not being one, if you ask me, because I don't see atheists out there, atheists and agnostics out there, I mean, I do see them with the satanic church trying to join, and stuff. Well, hey, it's freedom of religion. Church of Satan can join too. And people don't get that. They don't get that. It's like, well, how can you worship Satan? I go, they're not fucking worshiping Satan. It's a point that if you can, sit there and worship God, you can have anybody. That's how stupid it is. And Dan Patrick, illustrious Attorney General, there is a bill that just passed, and it passed. I get it when it passes along, party lines, but when it passes unanimously, like it did in the Senate, I don't know about that. I think when Democrats and Republicans agree on something, I don't know if I really trust it. But it's a bill that they just passed in the Senate, and of course, it's got to go to the House. But they're like outlining when doctors can perform abortions or not. And Dan Patrick on his page said, "Well, I am a Christian. I do this. This is a government state page. Like, if you're a state employee, and Joe Schmo does that, he'd get fired." But he says he's a Christian and like he wants abortion eliminated, which I guess after Roe was defeated, I guess you can do that. But now Texas has the slowness of doctors. And with this, the tariffs, people aren't realizing what's going to hit them too is surgeries are going to start being denied. They're going to start being, because it's going to be like COVID. They're going to start not making surgeries because they're not going to have medical equipment. I mean,
Right.
it's like in a lot of pharmaceutical stuff, we get that from foreign lands too. Not everything's made in America. Yeah, that's a great thing to, wear your WWF T-shirt and your Hulk Hogan beer and say "Made in America, Made in USA." But the truth is, a lot of shit ain't made here. We import a lot of
Right.
shit. But now, with Texas going on, is New Jersey is actually running billboards down here in Texas talking about, hey, if you perform abortions, if you're an abortion provider, why not consider moving to New Jersey? I mean, they're
Yeah.
literally purging the people out of here to do that. And Texas is fine with it. They have these people. I mean, if I'm a doctor and, nobody goes to college to be, and nobody goes to college to be, I love abortions, it's
Yeah.
just, and a lot of women have to have that because it's healthcare or they'll bleed out in their car.
Right.
But if I'm going to take the chance, as like I do an abortion in Texas, and but say I, my sister-in-law needs an abortion, I'm coming from another state, they're going to track that shit. They're going to do that down here. Why would I stay here in Texas? Yeah, I do 99 other things besides abortion. Abortion's a 1%, but I'm going to, go to jail for that 1%. Why would I stay in Texas? There's no fucking reason
Yeah.
why I would.
Well, not only the doctors, why would young people stay in Texas if you believed in reproductive rights? I mean, if I'm a young woman and a young man living in Texas and I'm thinking about having kids, I'm not going to be there because if something goes wrong, my wife is probably going to die because they won't do anything for her. I have a daughter-in-law who's currently pregnant, going to give birth next month. And I'm very grateful that we're in Minnesota because she won't have any problems. She'll get the care she needs regardless of what happens. And I'm thankful for that. But I got to tell you, if my son and his wife lived in Texas, I'd say you need to come up here and move in for a while until this baby is born because it doesn't look good down there. And if something goes south, there's going to be nobody to help you.
Well, it's like the United States. I mean, if it, I mean, we're primed for something happening. Who's going to step in and help us out? I mean, is it going to be that who's that guy that said he has some tariff agreements with somebody, some country, but he won't reveal who it is? I mean, look at 9/11 when that happened. I mean, all these countries, our allies came, but we pissed on every single ally we have. And Trump thought he was buddying up to Putin. Putin told him to fuck off. And the Chinese
Yeah,
and the Russians are buddies. So what do the Chinese do? They send us a bunch of empty containers.
yeah,
And there was a I remember somebody talking about this in the first 4-year nightmare, that there was, I guess, Chinese have a lot of our debt, and if they called in that loan, I don't know how this works. I mean,
I think they have bonds, some security bonds or something.
they can buy that to where it'll pretty much cripple us, which
Yeah,
maybe they're waiting to that to where we don't have bananas or Ozempic on the shelves anymore, and people can't get their meds. And it's like that. There was a C-SPAN caller that was a Republican that voted, and I think he voted for Kamala this time. And he fucking told him, "It's like Biden and them capped it at $35. Fucking, that's one of the first fucking things Trump did, and also
yeah,
the overdraft fees. They did that too.
yeah.
My God, if Biden would have done that or Kamala would have done that, I mean, but that's how much of a cult these people are in, and it's just there's just no like I said, I'm turning 53. I don't want to waste my time dealing with these people. You know what I mean? If we don't talk to each other, we don't talk to each other. Life's too short to put up with this shit. I'd rather hang
Well,
out with you, Eric, Will, old soul, the people that are like-minded that actually want to help people. I don't want to fuck anybody over just to get what's better for me.
right. Well, and that's the whole point. We're hearing it's interesting uh, what Donald Trump is doing with U.S. aid and some other things. The farmers are really taking it in the ass, and they haven't even experienced the bad times. And Donald Trump did it the first time to them, bailed them out. They voted for him again. I don't know the level of stupidity that you have to vote for somebody who sunk your fucking business. And just by the grace of God, he bailed you out.
Yeah.
Now he's doing it again to the farmers, and these farmers still seem to support Donald Trump. So you get what you deserve. There's something in Congress where they're going to try to bail him out now, hundreds of billions of dollars. This is what they want to do. This
They
is
want to
what I
buy
will
votes.
say to
They want to
this
buy
is what I
votes.
will say to the farmers that voted for Donald Trump and are looking for a bailout. I'm going to tell you something. That is the essence of socialism. That is the essence of socialism. You hated socialism so bad, and now you're begging for it. It's little more than welfare. You should be allowed to make your money and run your business like everybody else, but you get subsidies in the first place, and no one's bitching about that. You vote for somebody who tanks your business, and then you want to get bailed out. I'm sorry for all of the things you've said about socialism. I'll agree with you here. Why should you get bailed out? Uh, why should anybody get bailed out at this point? I mean, Donald Trump has a good old buddy with Sarah Huckabee Sanders down in Arkansas. She's the governor there. They got all kinds of tornadoes and all kinds of disaster down there. Sarah says, Daddy Donnie, would you please help us out with some FEMA? He says, fuck yourself. I don't feel sorry for her. I maybe feel sorry for some of the people down there, but if you voted for Donald Trump, you fucked around and found out. I'm sorry. Some people will say that's not very nice to speak badly. You haven't listened to me long enough. I'm a nice guy to people who are nice. I'm not a nice guy to people who aren't nice. I don't give it evenly to everybody. You got to earn that empathy or that sympathy. And people that voted for Donald Trump, they didn't. They got what they fucking deserve, and they will continue to get what they deserve.
And what's going to happen is that, what was it, when North Carolina got hit and FEMA wasn't there or did something, they were blaming Biden for shit. You don't hear anybody
Yeah.
talking fucking Oklahoma now. And
No.
we're headed into this thing called hurricane season. And
Yeah.
hurricanes are getting smaller and more contained. They're getting worse.
Yeah.
And Texas and Florida, Alabama, three of the biggest red states are going to get are big time hit by tornado or by hurricanes, tornadoes that spawn from that. So that's going to be, George Bush got a lot of crap because Kanye West went on there, and a guy that loves Adolf Hitler, calling somebody else out for not liking black people.
Yeah.
Come on, and it's just like that killed Bush. That pretty much killed Bush's. I mean, he got reelected, but that killed his popular vote. And when this happens, when these storms start hitting, and they're going to be massive, and they're saying now tornado or hurricanes that a category 5 is too small. I mean, they're
Yeah.
getting bigger, but there's no such thing as climate change. So I'd like to see how Florida and unfortunately Texas and Alabama and all the Gulf states, because San Antonio's due for one. We haven't been hit by a hurricane in years. And all it needs to do is just go up there and it can wipe out, it goes big enough, it can wipe out Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and then there's no FEMA coming. I mean, honestly, is there a FEMA director anymore?
I
Or
don't
did they
think there is.
somebody else? You don't hear them. And also what's suffering too is those warning signs you get for, like, a lot of those warning signs you get for storms coming. There's hail coming, there's tornadoes coming. People got to know this shit, but evidently that's waste, according to Elon and Dodge, who has nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it's
Elon's
coming.
kind of taken a back seat lately because he's been taking such a beating. Nobody likes him. Teslas are burning to the ground, literally and figuratively. Um, a lot of people think that Elon is going to step back and go back to Tesla and do business. Tesla's done. It's cooked right now. There's no way he can bring that back as long as his brand is tied to Tesla and that's attached like with Gorilla Glue. It's done. Tesla's done. This is an opportunity for other companies that make electric cars that are superior, better looking. I mean, we heard about the one in China, BYD. I've seen some of the cars they have. Fucking amazing. I don't know how good of cars they are, but they're as good looking as anything Tesla's got. And then again, more. Elon's Elon's not going to be in good shape once Donald Trump is no longer around because he's committed some crimes, and he might very well get indicted. Uh, he might very well get convicted, and he's more likely to get deported, which would be hysterical if that happened.
Yeah, they're what they're doing is also it's going to be they're also going to be a competition for Tesla is Amazon. And I know
Yeah.
a lot of shit and everything, but they're making a vehicle like a truck that's like 20,000 below. You can offer a youngster, $20,000 vehicle like a truck. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a game changer right there because that may put the oil business out right there. There's more electric, but we got to get there with the technology. But there's also something in this bill that they're doing. I was reading today that we haven't talked much about. They're putting a tax on electric vehicles and hybrids. It's like a $200 tax on electric vehicles, and I think a $100 tax on hybrids. So the Republicans are what they're doing is they're making the middle class once again, because middle class are the people that buy these things,
Yeah.
liberals. It's not the rich people. They don't give a fuck about the electric vehicles or whatever. But they're going to put on like a $10, $100, like I think it's per year, and a $200 thing on electric cars. So to give the rich the thing, they're gonna put it on us because they said it was to replace the I guess the 14-cent gas tax that they haven't increased, but I don't hear them talking about repealing that. So it's an additional to the 14-cent gas tax. So it's just more shit for us to take on. And it's funny you were mentioning before about welfare. Yeah, it's okay when it's corporate welfare, but when it's a
Yeah.
welfare mom or dad who got injured on the job that need it, and what's the biggest thing that Republicans see? And I'm saying Republicans see when they look at welfare. What did Reagan call them? Welfare moms, or they're women,
Welfare queens.
welfare queens. They're people of color. That's exactly who they think. But it's like when you look at this country, you look at the red states, everybody talks about how much California is, but California and New York, they pick up the stuff for the red state. I don't think Texas is one of them because Texas, I mean, because of oil, we're pretty much,
Yeah.
on our own. But like Kentucky, Alabama, some of the poor states, they rely on that stuff from California. And California just what passed Japan as the fourth biggest economy in the world.
Right.
California would be fine if they left the union. The rest of us would be fucked. I think Texas will be okay as long as we have oil, but we're running out of water. So Texas, I mean, I got 7 years to retire, and I don't know about Canada. Canada's pretty damn cold, but I don't think I'm getting the hell out of Texas. And I mentioned California is like, well, it's high there. It's like, well, yeah, it's high there, but I mean, everywhere's high. I mean, you kind of think about it. I mean, the cost of living shit's gone up, but the paychecks never do.
I want to tell you something. You said because of the size and the oil in Texas that they must be a giver state, and logically that makes sense.
Yeah,
So I just took a moment. I went over to AI. I said, "Is Texas a giver or a taker state?"
right taker.
Surprised to find out that Texas is generally considered a taker state, meaning
Really?
it receives more federal funding than it contributes to federal taxes. While it does have significant trade surplus, particularly in oil and gas industry, its overall relationship with the federal government leans toward receiving more than it gives.
But
Big state like that, it's a
that's
taker too.
that's not what Greg Abbott told me. Mike, you got to be wrong.
I well, Greg may have been mistaken.
Yeah,
He's been
he might,
known to be wrong a time or two.
yeah, that doesn't surprise me because I mean, I'll admit, I live down here. I kind of live in a bubble. I mean, we think we're great, but what the Republicans are doing here, they just passed a bill creating their own Dodge to go after government waste because
Doge,
there's
you mean Doge? Somebody cut slashing and
yeah, but who's been fucking in charge of the fucking state for 30 fucking years? Well, Abbott
yeah,
was like, well, there's too much regulation passed by. And it wasn't Democrats. There hadn't been a
right.
Democrat here when Sam Richards walked the earth. So come on. But it's just all about, it's just like Trump. It's all about like, dangling that, shiny object, for those ADD people that, ooh, object, that they don't, look at, that there's fucking ground is falling below you. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me about Texas. That does, you say that and it's like, what was I thinking? Because I was always told that because of oil. But if people aren't working, nobody gonna need no oil. So guess what? That's gonna go down too.
Yeah, you were talking about the bill, the big beautiful budget bill that Donald Trump
Proud of.
so severely wants passed. I think they're going to have trouble with that because usually the way Republicans like to do things, they like to slip in cuts where they're a little loophole or a little cover. Well, we're not really doing that. And they've tried that with the Medicaid thing on this particular budget. We're not cutting Medicaid. Well, yeah, you don't say Medicaid, but you're cutting a department, and at 880 billion, the only place you could cut it from that department is Medicaid. So while you're not saying it, it's pretty clear what you're trying to do. And the problem they're having now is it's not under the radar anymore. Everybody knows it. And people are freaking out. I mean, as big and strong and powerful as Texas is, I'll guarantee you there's a shitload of people down there on Medicaid that would be devastated if that got cut.
Yeah, and I remember in my Rush Limbaugh days, the way the Republicans look at cuts, they don't look at the same cuts as me or you. If I don't give as much money, if I don't give as much money as I did last year on something, what is that? That's a cut. The way they look at it, they're not spending as much, so that's not technically a cut. Their budget just doesn't call for it, so to them, it's not a cut. And Rush Limbaugh
Right.
put that in his book. It's not technically a cut because we're just not spending as much. That's a fucking cut. And I read that about 30 years ago, but that's a fucking cut. But
Yeah.
that's the way they do it. It's like, well, it's, and I don't know, Mike. I mean, I didn't think they would, pass some of the stuff they passed. I was kind of surprised that Chip Roy and them people from the Freedom Caucus, all of a sudden when the Republicans are in power, they don't mind spending money, and all those cuts they want to do are, gone. But Chip Roy sure got up there and was like, oh, we'll get it next time. I mean, he caved to that. I mean, and it's a lot of these people, and I think it's happening to Republicans too, is they're getting their families threatened. I mean, I don't know who's
Yeah.
doing it, but if your family's threatened, why do you back down like a bitch?
Yeah.
Stand up for yourself, expose that shit. And if more people did what Bezos did today, but besides the backing down part, if they would have started putting that shit on there, I mean, you saw how fast the White House reacted to that shit. If they get
Yeah.
out there and people see that on their Amazon bill, hey, a tariff thing, you're MAGA as fuck. You're going to be pissed.
Here's
If
the
you,
thing, though. Here's what happens to these people. They do all this stuff. They don't want anybody talking about it. They don't want Bezos to mention how much the tariffs are costing. They don't want people leaking fuck ups by the Department of Defense. There comes a point when you're the type of person that Donald Trump and the Republicans are that you're juggling shit. I got to put out that fire. I got to put out that fire. I got to put out that fire. Eventually, the whole motherfucking forest is burning down and it gets out of control. And I think that's where we're headed with this right now. It's starting to get out of control. We got Bezos, we've got Hegseth, we've got the problem with Garcia, we got the problems with a 2 year old being sent out. We've got the stock market crashing. There's too many things he can't balance. He can come here and say, "Oh no, the economy's great," but the people living in this world, in this country, know that it's not. He can only gaslight people so far, and when it becomes apparent to us and we start getting our ass bit, there's no way to divert or distract from it because people are suffering and they're going to be pissed. People only care about themselves, especially the Republicans. And while they love Donald Trump right now, when they get fired from their jobs or they lose their health care or their Medicaid and they start losing money and they can't afford to buy things or things just aren't available, they're going to get pissed and they'll get pissed at whoever is responsible for it. And that's when we see the tide turning a little bit for Donald Trump. There'll always be people who say, I love him no matter what. But we don't need everybody to hate him. We just need the vast majority to hate him. And if you look at the polls, looks like we're there.
yeah. Well, like you said, like me and your biggest mistake was thinking that, you know, people were more concerning about their fellow man than they were. That's why they voted for this. You know, what can Donald
Right.
Trump be? Oh no, I don't like this shit because it's affecting me. I've had people tell me that, and I'm like, don't you want to build a bigger? There's enough for everybody. I mean, why do you have to have? Why do you? And I'm starting to sound like Bernie Sanders. You know, why do you need so many billions? Why do you need more? I mean, I don't understand that, and I'm not saying we're going to take it away from them, do a Robin Hood thing, but I mean, when you put so many things against people, and like you said, when people have nothing else to lose, they have nothing else to lose.
Right.
And if you know, your grandma gets kicked out of the nursing home because you get laid off and you can't afford it, so you're going to have like all these, you know, people on the streets that are homeless that are, you know,
Or living in your basement,
yeah,
you know.
or but it's kind of funny because, you know, I remember during like a few years ago they had these on ABC News, they were talking about like it was kind of a new norm where they would build these houses because an in-law could move in with a married couple.
Right.
I mean, you're seeing that more and more nowadays. I mean,
Yeah.
it happens. It happens to the best of us, and it's like because you to make sure that your parent, somebody you care about, isn't on Skid Row or in a bad area where they get killed. You know, they want to be safe. But if we're all like that and we all have nothing to lose, I mean, I don't even want to think about it. I'm afraid we may have to go through some times like that because it's just, a lot of leaders, when they see something happening, they back down, but Trump just doubles down on it. You know, everybody in the world told him that tariffs are bad. So what is now his dear followers are saying? Well, it takes time. Biden messed it up. It takes time. And it's like you said, it was what 30,000 when he left the first thing. It was up to 45,000 when Biden left. Now it's down to 40. I mean, it's like the stock market crashing like this. It used to be a big deal.
Yeah.
Now it's just another. Well, the stock market's down. I lost money. I'll be okay. And I had somebody tell me, she goes, "Well, I got my money back." And I looked at her. I go, "You're so full of shit. You did not get your money back." Because I guess TJ was saying how much money he lost, and he's been invested a while. Well, I got my money back. There is no fucking way because everything's been touched. There's no way. And I know because where you work, you don't have that much stock. So don't give me that shit. I mean, they see their leaders can lie. They lie.
Yeah. That's the thing about it. I will sit and talk to somebody, and this is why I can't talk to them because they will lie to prove their point.
Yeah.
And it's hard to argue with somebody who's either believed their lies or just trying to pawn off lies. I can tell you that they're lies. I can prove to you that they're lies. But even if I prove to them, they will still stand by their lies. That's why, people say this is a little different than partisanship. This is literally a cult. You've been sucked into something and you will say anything and do anything to support your people or your guy, um, whether it's truthful or not. And that's why I have trouble talking to Trumplafucks because I know they're lying. I'll tell them they're lying. I'll prove to them they're lying, and they'll continue to lie. If that was my kid, I'd put him in his room for a week and punish him for fucking being dumb enough to continue to lie.
Yeah. But nobody's ever, it's like you said, he doesn't understand when these countries tell him no because his own party doesn't do that. What he did with the January 6th stuff, and I know, and now they've come start saying, well, you still talk about that much. You're damn right I talk about that because it still matters. It still
It's
freaking
his,
matters.
it's
That's
history.
that's how much of a cult they were, is that they were willing to go to jail for this guy. I like
Yeah.
you, Mike, but I may wash your car or something, but I ain't gonna do no fucking time for you.
No, no, there's,
Did I
you
mention
know,
car wash would be topless? But no, I don't want to go there. So
no, no, we don't need to see that at all. Um, we were talking about what people are going to have to go through to actually realize that they're wrong. And, I've said before, I've resigned myself to the fact that something catastrophic has to happen before Republicans get the courage to push back or Trumplafucks get the courage or the willpower to push back. And we may be on the verge of something catastrophic. Everybody's worried about the cost of things and prices raising, which they are and which they will. But we're hearing now that there are no more, after the first week of May, there are no more ships coming out of China. Now, a lot of people say, I don't like buying Chinese shit. Well, you'd be surprised how much Chinese shit you buy. And you'd be even more surprised by how many businesses count on products from China. So, what that's going to mean is I saw somebody on television today, some experts saying, if the tariffs stay the way they are and everything, nothing changes, they felt like 80% of the companies that count on Chinese products would literally go bankrupt. 80%. Think of how much money that is out of the GDP. Think of how much money that is out of people who will lose their jobs, out of the taxes being collected. It's crazy. And that point where we're going to start running out of shit and people are going to be running around looking for toilet paper, which is ridiculous because toilet paper is made here, but that's the first thing they grab for, which isn't surprising because they're all full of shit. But when that hits, there's going to be no denying. They're going to look for somebody to blame, and the only person they can blame is Donald Trump.
Well, you saw that today, how UPS is going to lay off 20,000 people because they're
Yeah,
not expecting Amazon to have as much. When Amazon starts suffering,
yeah,
that's not a good sign for the company. Walmart, people talk about their cheap shit. You talk about, I remember one time, I think it was a thing at work where I got a thing for Flag Day. It was an American flag magnet. Guess where that was
yeah.
fucking made?
Got to be
And
China.
did you see that thing? It was a meme that went out about how this Chinese company made all these MAGA stuff about ragging on China. China don't give a fuck. China's playing, they talk about Trump playing chess and everybody's playing checkers. China can wait this out because
Yeah,
China knows in about 3.5 years, if not sooner, Trump's going to be gone. And
right.
I honestly don't think if Trump, when Trump goes away, I don't think Vance and the Republicans are going to do tariffs. I think when Trump is finally gone, I think you're going to see the Republicans, I guess, wise up, so to speak. They'll still be despicable jerks, trying to ban, Head Start and stuff. But the tariff stuff's not gonna play. That's a Trump thing. And the way he's talking, he may, his political thing may die for it. But when you have, when you have the forest set on fire, and the forest set on fire and all the arsonists perish in the fire, what the saddest part about that fire is all the poor wildlife that's there. And the ones like me, you, the Democrat voters that didn't, and the Republicans that didn't vote for this shit are going to get so consumed in it too. It's going to take that. I mean, I don't know. We're in uncharted territory. I mean, they don't like to say the word depression, but, I've been depressed ever since last November. So I'm already in a
Yeah.
fucking depression. So, and I knew this was coming. So I remember after that election, I just like, well, fucking, I'm just going to enjoy it, and I kind of look at it that way too. I try not to worry because there's not a lot of shit I can do about it. I'm so
Yeah,
fucking,
there's nothing you can do.
maybe when I'm looking at a mushroom cloud going off somewhere because he pissed off, Vladimir, it's like, oh shit, there it goes. But it's like you got to live in the moment a lot of times, and you got to just you can't fear because that's what they're doing. But I think we're headed into something that we don't need to go into. I mean, we don't we it's 2025. We shouldn't be worrying about where we can get the next Nintendo. We shouldn't be, we should be worrying about, curing cancer. But, I read also too with all these cuts he's doing that there's going to be some lab animals that are going to have to be euthanized now. And, I'm not for lab testing myself, but it's a necessary evil that,
Yeah.
and there's going to be clinical trials that are going to be done on people, and that's going to be done because the
Yeah.
billionaires get their taxes. And it's sad.
Well, it is sad, but I think people are getting hip to the fact that this is a uh, 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 class war. It's us against the wealthy people, and the wealthy people are taking their hit. But when China seems set on just shoving this down Donald Trump's throat. Donald Trump did this thing with cars, you know, 25% or 40% or whatever. And he went to Michigan yesterday to give a rally. Now, I don't know how many people attended the rally. I don't know how many people who supported him. I haven't read anything about it as yet, but I know there were thousands outside protesting, which doesn't surprise me. And this has got to hit Donald Trump thinking, how much money does Soros have? He's paying all these people. It's fucking ridiculous. Uh, but he's clearly afraid of what's going on with these town halls. He's saying these are all paid Democrats doing it. Well, that's not true. We know the Republicans are taking the brunt of this in some of these red states. And you can go to those places that you think are friendly, but they aren't going to be too happy. We were talking about something we both saw on video where they were talking to this older lady, this elderly lady who was a Trump humper. Not anymore. She calls Donald Trump an asshole. I love it when I see a 75-year-old woman call Donald Trump an asshole because she just hit it right on the nose. She nailed it because that's what he is. He is an absolute imbecile and he's an asshole. And finally, some Republicans are finally starting to recognize it. But I think, Donald Trump keeps saying, well, it's in China's court. We're just waiting for a call. You're going to be waiting a while because they don't give a fuck. They want to teach you a motherfucking lesson, and they're going to. They made plans after the last time you did this. They made, they altered what they did so they could get through something like this. They're just cutting deals with all those people that now hate us that was once our friends. And nobody wants to deal with us because they can't count on anything Donald Trump says. He doesn't stay on track.
Okay, he's gotten a lot of shit lately. Gavin Newsom's gotten a lot of shit lately. Why
Yeah.
was Richard Whitmer at that freaking rally? Gavin Newsom was at the thing when those fires were going on. He met Trump there as a governor.
Right.
I heard that she was there and that he hugged her.
Yeah, something like that.
Why are you at that? Why? I mean, it's you talk about stock going down in somebody. I mean, it's like this is the second time she did that. And the Democrats thing now is like Bill Maher is one of the worst ones having dinner with Trump. And I mean, it's like, why are these Democrats doing this? Why are they? They're normal. They're doing what the press did. They're normalizing this bullshit. There's nobody bigger responsible for this than Trump being normalized and Kevin McCarthy and the press.
Right.
When you
Right.
when you give him an audience, you're doing it. Bill Maher didn't meet with him. Bill Maher, it ain't gonna solve anything. Yeah, he's buddies with
No.
Kim. Big fucking deal. You can be buddies with somebody, but not fucking when you go to that rally. What's up with that? And maybe somebody can, from Michigan can tell us that. But and I saw that. I mean, that's to me that I mean I and to me and I know a lot of people disagree with me, but I mean I kind of see what Gavin Newsom is doing in the podcast. He's not doing it as a governor. Yeah, he's the governor, but what she was doing as a governor at a Trump rally. I mean, if we're giving Gavin a bunch of shit, they need to give her a bunch of shit because and her hiding in that thing, and him giving her compliments, and then she goes to this thing.
Yeah.
It's like, it's
Well,
like,
well, people have to understand that Donald Trump is toxic. He's like a virus himself. If you stand near Donald Trump and you are friendly to him, I mean, Obama got kicked back from being at that funeral and laughing with Donald Trump. How dare you? Gavin Newsom had trouble with talking to Charlie Kirk. Now, Gavin Newsom didn't get heat because he interviewed Charlie Kirk. He didn't get heat because Charlie Kirk was on the podcast. It was because Gavin Newsom didn't take him to task.
true.
Now, I'll tell you this. I could stand next to Donald Trump and not get canceled because I would call him out. And that's the thing. The Democrats refuse to call him out. They want to play nice. And this isn't a nice fucking competition anymore. Um, and so what people are mad about is they're terrified and they're mad with Donald Trump and they're tired of him getting away with everything, like
Yep.
in the media, like from our politicians, like from Chuck Schumer. We need somebody to walk up and slap the taste out of his mouth. They're that mad and that terrified, and if you're not willing to do that, you're going to get canceled. If it looks like you're going to play into his hand and not fight back, they're going to hate you. I mean, we saw it at the Pope's funeral. Donald Trump is standing there with Zelensky, and uh, President Macron from France
France.
comes in. He goes over and shakes hands with Zelensky. He didn't shake hands with Trump because he knew once he did, everybody go, "Oh, that's Trump's buddy. Fuck him." I
Yeah.
mean, you have to be really careful when you're dealing with this situation because it's like standing next to a fucking leper. If you touch him, it's going to come to you. And people, especially Democrats, have to understand that. They'll say, "Well, it's the office of the presidency." Well, the office of the presidency doesn't have much respect due given who's in that office right now. He is stained, he is tainted, and he has ruined the office of the presidency. So you don't need to pay respect to somebody like that.
And did you hear that guy that remember Pelosi, AOC was running for that cabinet position, I guess, or whatever?
Yeah.
And that guy that was the Democrats' first thing, that older guy, he's got cancer, came back, and I wish him well. But that's another problem. Is like you don't have anybody in the Republican Democratic Party that is really exciting millennials, except like a AOC or Jasmine Crockett. And I know that there's other ones. Those two people you had on from California, the radio, they were talking
Yeah.
about being 53-year-olds. I never heard of them, and I was like,
Yeah.
I think you kind of mentioned that. Well, probably Gen X or Boomers probably ain't going to know them too much. That's on me. That's
Yeah.
something that I need to do more. I mean, of course, I know Jasmine Crockett because she's from Texas, and she's about the only house rep up there that I'm not embarrassed by. And
Yeah.
but we should, and I think it's just a lot of just not caring is why they win these elections, is because they know people, like we're having a vote for mayor here in San Antonio. I don't get to vote for it because I'm outside the city limits, but they have 23 people that are like running for governor and or mayor, and it's this weekend. And San Antonio's and one of them is Gina Ortiz, and she ran against, I think, Will Hurd back in the day. Well, she's a Democrat, but I'm not really too crazy about her either, because there was a thing one time where they had to do a runoff. And I think, or no, there wasn't a runoff, but she was running against Will Hurd, and Will Hurd beat her. But there was something where they had to contest. She showed up at the new hire orientation for a House representative. I'm like, and I know you're a Democrat and everything, but
I lost,
really?
bitch.
And it's like, and I just that always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Will Hurd won, and Will Hurd is like that old school Republican. He wasn't really a fan of mine, but he's somebody that sees where the Republican. He got kicked out of the Republican Party because he wasn't a cult member.
Right.
Do I agree
Right.
with that? He says no, but he's that Republican that you could, you know, bipartisan work with. That he wasn't out to, steal your lunch money. But
I
when
can I
she,
can I can I can deal with somebody who thinks differently than I do if they're normal, decent human beings. Unfortunately, there is nobody in MAGA that does that. I just wanted to bring something up. You mentioned the representative that has cancer. What we're talking about there was the oversight committee. AOC was in the running to be the ranking member for the Democrats and the oversight committee. And then, of course, Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, and all the establishment motherfuckers said, no, AOC, we're going to put Jerry Conley in there. Now, Jerry Conley is a fine enough representative. There's nothing wrong with Jerry Conley. Prior to being put in the Oversight Committee's chair or ranking member, um, whatever it is, I'm not sure if he's the chair or the ranking member, um, but he had cancer before. So the question was, why put in this old guy that's been in there for a long time that has some health issues? Why put him in there and not AOC? That seemed to be kind of bullshit. Well, now Jerry Conley has to step aside from that chairmanship because cancer came back. And that's a sad story. And I wish him the best and hope all goes well. So now what do you do? Now who do you put in that place? Do you go to AOC and give it to her? I heard one other creator on TikTok talk about this yesterday. And she said, well, you know who the vice chair is? Jasmine Crockett. So does that mean Jasmine Crockett steps into that position? Or does she get elected into that position? That would be interesting. I would be even happier for Jasmine Crockett to be in there than AOC because she's a lawyer. She's articulate, and so is AOC. But Jasmine got a little more fire. And it's funny thing about Jasmine, whenever AOC says something, Republicans go after her. When Jasmine says something, they don't fuck with her. That would be the person to be in that position.
Yeah, and because AOC, isn't she going to go challenge Schumer? So
I
yeah,
hope she does.
so let Jasmine, stay in the House, but let AOC go do that. God, can you imagine AOC as the Senate Majority Leader? God, that'd be great. I mean, you're that would be awesome. I mean, but
Well, I don't know if she would be the majority leader
if they win the
because
they win the Senate, she has a chance to be. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not saying she
well,
will, but if she
if
gets,
she
I mean,
yeah. I mean, if she beat out Schumer, that doesn't make her the leader right away. They would
get the
re-vote for that.
yeah,
But at
but
least she's in line for
yeah,
that
exactly.
position at some point.
Now I don't say it automatically gets her that, but you know, you know, I heard that Chuck Schumer was really upset about AOC may run against him, but he wrote a really strongly worded letter.
Yeah, yeah, I heard that. I heard that, and he got beat up by it for it. Chuck Schumer writing a strong letter.
Yeah. No,
Eh,
strongly worded letter. Mhm.
That's like getting punched in the nose and said, "I'm never talking to you again."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Promise,
big.
promise.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and then we've got this other thing that's driving the Democrats nuts. This David Hogg, who's in the DNC, and he wants to primary some of the less effective representatives. Now, from the Democratic establishment side, they don't want to make it any tougher for people who have sure things in. Uh, they don't want to take somebody who's got a sure thing as getting elected to the House of Representatives and have them primaried by somebody else, thinking that it's going to
So
make it
afraid to
harder
lose.
to maintain the Democratic thing. But I think David Hogg has got the right idea. I've said this before. I think what we've seen with the Republicans and many of the Democrats, we need a complete overhaul of our Congress in order to get some things done. Because even before Donald Trump, we weren't getting things done. And that was as much a fault of the Democrats as the Republicans.
Yeah, and I saw that. I saw an article too, or saying, "Well, we shouldn't be doing what Trump does." Damn right, we should be. If you're not going to,
Absolutely, we should
why are
be.
you up there in Congress if you ain't representing us? I'd much rather have a fighter lose than a do nothing get nothing. Because I mean, what do you have that do nothing there, and a lot of those do nothings that I've seen in my history, the fighters that believe in what they do, that's who I want up there.
Yeah.
But the do nothings are usually the ones that if tough gets, they get, a lot of the Republicans win, they'll switch parties. That's what the do nothings do. So get them the hell out of there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get that dead weight out of there because we're not working bipartisan anymore. This is war. This is war for the way of life of America. And if oh well, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. Well, then you need to go back to your job being a lawyer or a clerk somewhere. Don't be, running in the House or Senate. There is
Well,
nothing
that's
wrong.
exactly. It's like I said before, they want to play 1990s politics, and unfortunately, that's not the realm anymore. The realm is it's a fucking street fight. So we need street fighters in order to compete. AOC is a street fighter. Jasmine Crockett's a street fighter. To a certain extent, so is Swalwell, Eric Swalwell. Some of these younger people, and I've said this before too. I said, I'm 65 years old. Some people have said to me, um, you should run for something. No, I'm not running for something. I don't I don't want to work. I want to
Yeah.
do this. But secondly, I have one quality that should preclude me from running for any position in politics. I'm an old white guy. We've had enough old white guys.
I
Let's get
agree.
some young people because If I'm making decisions about the future, my future is that. My son's future is bigger. Why should I determine what his life is going to be 30 years from now when I'm not even fucking here? That's
Yeah.
just not right. We need the young people in there. And as much as the Democrats are just really angry with David Hogg at this point, they don't like this at all.
Well, maybe
What you
that's
did the
good.
last 4 years didn't work. If it didn't work, why not try something different?
Well, if the Democrats are getting upset about it, good. Have a little conflict in your party. I mean, that just proves that we don't bow down to one side. You know what I mean? I mean, fight. I mean, have the passion of like the Jimmy Stewart and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington or something like that. Have, Cory Booker, filibustering. That's what we need. We don't need, well, I don't want to lose my safe seat here because, Mabel from, down there, I mean, it's like you're representing more than just Mabel. You're representing more than just your donors. But a lot of it is, I hate to say it, on Democrats too, these people start out, but they get a lot of money from these special interests. That's what
Yeah.
a lot of it is. I mean, it's like, look at, I mean, they like, Mitch McConnell and all them, I'm sure Schumer too. I mean, they became millionaires, and it's like, because they get a lot of money from that shit, plus they get those stock options and the inside track on that. Hey, I'm going to, roll back the tariffs, okay, invest. Boy, is that a freaking Wall Street movie waiting to happen.
Yeah. I think the most disconcerting thing we've come to realize that's been exposed to us is that the most important thing to our members of Congress, Republicans certainly, with going along with Donald Trump the way they are, and the Democrats behaving the way they do, their first priority, their most important thing is get reelected. And that's where the problem lies. Their first
Yep.
priority should be dealing with this country, doing good things for this country and for the people in it. But that's not what it is. It's all fucking selfish. It's all about how do I get reelected? If I say this, I won't get reelected. How about just being a man or a woman and standing up and saying what's true, saying what you believe, instead of about worrying about whether or not you're going to get reelected? Because I will tell you this, if you do the right thing, you will be rewarded.
Yep.
When I first started doing the TikTok thing, I said, well, what can I do to get people to like me and to watch me and all this stuff? I quickly realized nothing, man. You're an old white man sitting in your living room. There's nothing you can do. So just do what you think is right and let the chips fall where they may. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But at least you're doing the right thing. And we need people in Congress that have that attitude.
Well, Mike, I was on TikTok the other day and I saw Hawk actually did one of your videos. He
I was
actually,
surprised.
I was like, wow. I was like, man, I know that. I know that guy over there. And it's just funny. It's like, and I know Hawk gets a lot of crap. And, you're not going to, I mean, that's the difference between us and MAGA. We don't fall on every word. You're going to have disagreements. That's the way it is. I mean,
Yeah,
we don't always agree on stuff. I mean,
no,
we don't like, but like if Trump says it or Republican, oh yeah, that's gospel. No, we're not that way. I mean, it's just, you got to let the younger people rule. You got to let the younger people, start taking over. You got to, let them old guys out of the, you got to move them out because it's like, after Trump's gone, I don't know who the Republicans have because there's no one with a charismatic. And when Trump
yeah,
goes, his base goes. And they're going
yeah,
to have to start over. Maybe that's a good thing for America because I don't want it would be nice if a lot more blue stuff did pass, but I know that not everybody thinks like me. And I can respect that knowing that, you may look at something different than I look at. I don't always get my way. And that's okay because I can go home and maybe try again. I don't throw a fit, try to burn something down, beat up a cop. There's in that, and that's what we need to get back to. Yeah, and when bipartisanship became a bad word, I mean, that's when this country started going down. And I think we need to get back to that. And I know we're going to have to go through some things, but I'm optimistic what happens after Trump. And I'm not a praying man, as you know, but if Odin or whoever's up there, Baal, all those gods or whatever the Egyptians worship, just get us through the next year and a half. We can get the Democrats to the midterms. Because God, man, I don't know, man. We're going into uncharted territory, but maybe you can see the forest or beyond the city beyond the forest or whatever they say that there's, it's like Bill Clinton said, I still believe in a place called hope. And I do, and I'm very optimistic for this country because I think that the majority of us are going to wake up and, I think the majority of us are awake. I just think you need to have more members of Congress on both sides stand up to this wannabe dictatorship because that's exactly what he wants.
Well, I've always been optimistic and I always have a lot of hope, but I try to be realistic about it too. And at this point in time, I do have a lot of hope, but I'm afraid that it's going to have to be a catastrophic fall to get to that other side.
Yeah.
But I think the way you can look at it, and I firmly believe this, is that sometimes when you've got an old forest that's kind of decrepit and dying trees and stuff, sometimes you got to burn that motherfucker down to have it grow back stronger. And I've seen it, in my long life. I had a cabin in the North Woods. I saw areas of land up there where the trees burned down and then they grew back. It took a while. It always takes a while. But we need a lot of changes in our government. The one thing that Donald Trump did that was probably positive for this country, he's such a fucking lumbering lug. He's a bull in a china shop. So all this criminality and corruption and bullshit that was probably hiding under the radar for decades and decades, he brought it to the surface like a fucking pimple. And now we all have seen it. So maybe there has to be some dramatic things done in order to clear that out, to wake people up. The other thing he did that's positive, we had been apathetic for so many years and just sat back and said, well, they'll do whatever they're going to do. I don't have any power. A lot more people are engaged now, as we saw in these protests. 5 million people on April 5th, more on April 19th, and there'll be more protests henceforth. But I just want to suggest this and see what you have to say, and then we'll wrap things up. You said Donald Trump is preparing himself to be impeached when and if the Democrats take control in 2026. And that's distinctly possible. But here's something else to consider. It may not be the Democrats that impeach him.
Sure.
And I know this sounds crazy, but if the shelves are bare, the economy is in shit, and everything is going to pot, not your kind of pot, the proverbial pot. But when everything is going to hell, the Republicans are going to be looking at that fucking midterms, and they're going, we are fucked. We are going to get wiped out. They may have to step up and impeach him themselves. There are Republicans already talking about it behind closed doors. So don't be surprised if that's something we see sometime before 2026. And it would be if something like that's going to happen, it's going to happen after we go through this budget thing. I don't think they're going to pass the budget thing. It's just too dirty. But they've got to play nice through this process with this budget. And if the budget passes and the world burns down, he could get impeached. If it doesn't pass because he's too weak to get it passed, he could get impeached for some of his other criminality or high crimes and misdemeanor. What are your thoughts about that?
I can see the Senate doing it because evidently Rand Paul has said he has the votes to pass that limitation on tariffs. Mm-hmm. But I don't see Mike Johnson doing that. And if Mike Johnson doesn't do that and they want to impeach him, they're going to have to vote Mike Johnson out.
Right.
So
right.
I don't see the current House Speaker. No, that's why I was kind of saying the Democrats. You may be right. They may do it, but they're going to have to get over Mike Johnson because he's not going to do it. He likes going to UFC too much, and he's Trump's buddy too much, and his son may limit his porn intake that week. So he's not going to do it. I mean, they're going to have to get rid of Mike Johnson too. They get rid of Mike Johnson, see it coming.
Unless what I also said was true. The most important thing to these people is to get reelected.
Yeah.
And these are not very loyal people. They're loyal to a point, but when it's going to cost you your power and your money, you'll kick anybody to the curb. These fuckers are despicable, and that's what they'll do. So if Mike Johnson is ever at a point where he thinks his future is in jeopardy because of Donald Trump, oh, he'll step away from Donald Trump quick, fast, and in a fucking hurry. Um, but will we see that? That's the important thing. Or will they just go off the cliff on May 26th and get their ass kicked? Or 2026? That could be too. It's hard to say. Every time I've thought that they've taken as much as they can take, they bend over and take more, which Mike Johnson does anyway, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, I like I said, I got more confidence in the Senate than I do the House, because the House I think the Senate is a little bit better run. They're kind of more, besides, Ted Cruz and, Lindsey Ladybugs,
Graham?
who was saying that he can't wait. He thinks Trump would make an excellent pope. And yeah, I don't know. The House is such a crapshoot. But if, like you said, they worry about winning re-election. I personally think, with all the things that have gone on, and the Republicans have let it happen, I think if they stay with Trump, and I think if they impeach Trump, I think they're going to get wiped out anyway. Because
I agree.
I don't think there's any. They could get up there and maybe cure cancer, and they would probably still get wiped out. That's how. That's
I agree.
what
They'll get wiped. They'll get wiped out, but they'll feel like they have to do something, and they're pretty delusional anyway. They think they can pull this out of the fire at the last minute.
They want to worry about their future.
Absolutely. Well, Jace, I'm going to wrap this up for the Rational Boomer podcast. Thank you very much for showing up today. I don't know that I could pull off another solo trip. I mean, I could, but I don't know how entertaining it would be. So I appreciate you showing up and offering your insights, perceptions, and 2 cents. So thank you very much.
And I want to say one other thing. I am a diehard Dallas Cowboy fan, and the team that I hate more than anybody, are the Philadelphia Eagles. And they probably feel the same way about us.
Yeah,
but
probably.
Jalen Hurts for not going and normalizing this stuff like a lot of his team did, and a lot of his thing. Jalen Hurts, you're an MVP in my book, bro.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts, I don't know much about him as a player. I know some people question whether he's good or not.
He's good.
And he's obviously done a good job with Philadelphia. There's no question about it. But if you hear him talk, he's a decent, centered, normal human being. And for that, he has my respect too.
Yeah. Yep. He's that kind of quarterback that I remember when Rush Limbaugh was on Monday Night Football, that was that good experiment. And he was saying, the media so wants a successful black quarterback. Well, yeah, everybody should want that.
Yeah. And we've had some. We've had a lot of them.
But it's always about that, guys. I mean, it's just always, it's like, that's why they honestly think that affirmative action, them banning that, will make everything equal. That's just because it's just bringing better people about, and it's just, I don't know. Don't get me started on that. But Jalen Hurts, you're my hero, man. I like what you did, because your teammates, a lot of them didn't have the cojones to do that.
And they got to be careful. A lot of people are going to get canceled if they continue to hang on with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is spinning out of control right now, and he's going to crash. And those people that haven't stepped away from him, they're going to be caught up in the fucking shrapnel of it all.
Yep, and that's exactly what George Soros told us both to say. So
that's right, George Soros. And I got some checks piling up here that I got to get cashed. He sent me so much money, I just don't have time to cash the checks. So, George, thank you. Yes. I'm going to get a yacht. I had a 20-foot pontoon last year. I got to go pick it up, but I'm going to trade it in for like a 150-foot yacht, because that'll go good on this lake.
Next time you see me, man, it's going to be a full-blown mullet.
A mullet? You know what you should go? You should just to piss off the Republicans, you should go for a full Colin Kaepernick fro. I mean, if you got the options, why not get some curly hair? It's easier to dry. What the hell?
Yeah, I don't know,
Anyway,
man. I don't know. I don't think that's in my budget. I got to ask George for some more money to get that kind of
yeah.
that.
All right. Well, Jace, thank you very much. And those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.